the idea of a democratic and free society. It is an idea for which I hope to live for and to see realized. But my Lord, if it needs be, it is an idea for which I am prepared to die.
In less than 2 hours, President Barack Obama will be giving his Mandela lecture speech. So let's cross to our SABC anchor, Peter Ndoro, who's at the venue of the highly anticipated Mandela lecture to be delivered by the former US president. Good afternoon, Peter. Over to you.
Thank you so much. Welcome back here at the wondrous cricket stadium. We're almost like a curtain raiser to one of the biggest news stories of today, not only locally but globally as well. And throughout the morning, we've been talking to you about the type of leaders that will be attending today. But as our camera pans through to my left, you can see there's students, there's ordinary South Africans. Earlier on, we spoke to a fashion designer, and we continue to see different parts of society, people arriving here in anticipation for the delivery of the 16th Nelson Mandela annual lecture. Peter, what's happening on your side?
Desiree, thanks very much indeed. Yeah, it's starting to build here, the excitement. One can almost sense that something quite profound is going to take place here today at Wanderers. President Barack Obama is, I suppose, headlining the bill, but we have so many people that have come in, former presidents, former heads of state, and people from all walks of life that are going to be hearing this important message on this special day, a day before Nelson Mandela would have turned 100 years old. And one of the things that Madiba was famous for, of course, was the Madiba shirt. And in many ways is one of his legacies, because it changed our view of how to wear African clothing proudly on the biggest stages. And one person who probably knows that more than I do is fashion icon, designer, David Lala. Thanks so much for joining us and welcome to the program.
Thank you for having me, Peter.
You have traveled the world. You've showcased your work on fashion weeks here, abroad, New York, Paris, you name it. So you understand fashion. Just how important was Madiba to the fashion conversation? I think a lot of people will be talking about his legacy and the work he did, but fashion, he contributed in a way, didn't he?
He did. I mean, his fashion sense, immediately he was released from prison. You could tell by the way he put himself together, the trench coats as he was, addressing the nations and the people, how he always wanted to be part of the people. And let alone when he came out with the Madiba shirt, which was an iconic movement and a mind shift from every head of state to say, you don't have to wear a suit every day. And but also it played a major role in terms of black consciousness or African consciousness in terms of fashion. To say we as African or South African designers or South Africa, we are colorful, we have texture, and we embrace who we are. And it didn't only play a role in the heads of state, but also you started seeing this movement playing a major role in people when they go to a gala dinner or to a red carpet event, people started wearing African clothing. Because, I think we were talking about it earlier, we've always thought anything that comes from America or from Europe was right. And I believe Nelson Mandela played a major role in saying, no, let's just change this whole thing. And we also saw amazing brands like your Stone Cherry, your Sun Goddess, really doing great work in terms of African fashion.
So some people would say that the clothes you wear express who you are and tell the story of who you are.
Yeah.
What could we say about, if we didn't know him, looking at the way he dressed, what would we say about him?
What I would say about him is he was a silent fashion icon. I don't think he was conscious of what he was doing. All he did, he was like, you know what, I'm tired, I'm old, I'm just going to be comfortable in my clothing. But that man, when he walked into a room, he commanded authority. And those Madiba shirts, they were very distinct, to say you can never miss it. Because every head of state would be coming up with a suit, whether it's a long sleeve suit or short sleeve, but Madiba was like, I'm going to walk in and I'm going to make a statement. Guess what? He did. Brought revolution into fashion. And it was amazing. Not only he inspired South African designers, but also international designers. You name the international brands. We started seeing them starting to take the influence from Madiba shirt and just making it revolutionary. It was really fantastic. And I would say silently he was a fashionista, I would say.
And I guess the way he wore the clothes, you know, because sometimes, you know, you fashion people know people will wear these torn jeans and so on and so forth, and then that's like stylish, whatever, but everything was always quite clean and simple. And what does that say about?
I would say yes, we may say he was not conscious, but he was conscious, but he was meticulous in terms of his personality and also understanding what he stands for as a president then, and also as a global icon, because immediately after he was released, all eyes were on him. All eyes were on South Africa. All eyes were on his dress code. And I know that I always enjoyed his simplistic way of putting himself together in terms of suiting. The colors were always just basic. It was gray, black, and charcoal. And it was like really, really standard. And most people may not have paid attention to that, but it was a thread that was going through. And how he mixed his textures. It was always a super wool, beautifully tailored. And I would say, until today, I would say some of the heads of state still look up to him. And we've seen how he actually even changed the game. Because, you know, over the years in jail, you are stuck to one way of dressing. When he comes out, he still embraces what Nelson Mandela stands for. But also before he went to prison, when he was still a lawyer or an attorney, you'd see how he used to put himself together. So there's not only post Robben Island, but before. And before he got married and everything else. And when he was arrested, I believe he was very stylishly dressed. Because, I mean, you look at, you know, the history and you look at the movie, it's like, it was really fantastic how conscious he was on how he put himself together. And I think that's what we need in today's age.
I mean, I noticed the side parting that you have there, and that's very Mandela-esque.
Absolutely.
So tell us about even that, because, you know, he was a young man, and he was very modern in his day, wasn't he?
I mean, people think that the side path is trending now. Mandela did it way before us, and all of us are just like getting into this long walk to we call it a long walk to freedom path. So it's trendy, and I think because he grew up within the Black consciousness movement and also was part of it and was part of revolutionaries, it was very important for him. Image was everything, let alone not only him, but also you look at how Mama Winnie was always embracing the style all the time. You just like see how this couple is just like massively had an impact in the youth and also in politics and also in the corporate, because it just goes hand in hand. You can't just do one and just leave it there, but the thread continues. And that's what I'm saying, the Nelson Mandela fashion was like not only post Robben Island, it started long time ago.
And grooming in general, because it does speak to how you comport yourself. And so it wasn't just the type of clothes he wore, but how he wore them, how he carried himself. You know, he was perfectly groomed.
Absolutely. I mean, you look at the journey of also our heads of states that we've had, the likes of Thabo Mbeki, our current president Cyril Ramaphosa. Like, I think they always also influenced one another. And you look at before, I mean, Nelson Mandela became president, they were always together, and they were always like well groomed, very stylish, beard and no beard, but the path was always there. And you could tell like these young men are up to something. And look at us today. They are like in the forefront of the country. And I would say in fashion we've had like great icons. And I think it's always important for young men today to follow suit. How you groom yourself, take care of yourself, and know what you stand for, because you're not only influencing your peers, but generations to come.
All right, okay, so we're about to wrap it up, but I just guess maybe a final word in terms of his lasting legacy on the fashion thing. Is the Madiba shirt going to fade away, do you think, or is that something that we'll always sort of half embrace?
I believe that Madiba shirt will always be celebrated. Will it stay forever? Yes, it will stay forever as part of the legacy. But the trends, as we know, they always evolve, they always change. And today we are watching men and young men and also politicians and powerful people that make decisions about our future as a country, how they put themselves together, the tailored suits, like super tailored, super tight, and like, you know, cropped pants with beautiful shoes. So slowly it's fading out as a trend, but because of, I would say, the centenary, there's beautiful projects where we're going to see the Madiba shirts being available nationwide. But I would say it's one thing that will always be celebrated, and I appreciate it because it had a direct impact in our industry.
All right, Dave Malik, always a pleasure talking to you. Thanks so much indeed for giving us these powerful insights.
Thank you,
on
Peter.
this special day.
Thanks
so much.
Thank you.
All right, so that's fashion icon, designer David Malik giving us his take on Nelson Mandela and the Madiba shirt. But it was more than just that. I think throughout his life he embodied and carried himself very well in terms of how he looked and how he presented himself. But Desiree Chalke is in the stands and starting to feel the atmosphere firsthand. Let's cross to her now and see who she's talking to. Desiree?
Absolutely, Peter. The atmosphere is palpable. It's the 17th day of July and we're here celebrating Otatu Nelson Rolihlahla Mandela. But it's day 17 of Mamokgethi Phakeng's days in her job, a job that we all celebrated as South Africans, but it was also celebrated internationally as Vice Chancellor of the University of Cape Town. Thank you so much for making the time. Why is it important for you to be here?
Well, it's important to be here because this day we celebrate an icon who showed us the way, who showed us how to lead selflessly. And so being here to listen to President Obama, who himself, I mean the symbolism of having Obama presenting the Mandela lecture is huge. It's huge for black people all over the world. But it's huge also for leadership and what leadership can do. And so I'm really pleased to be here to listen to President Mandela, to President Obama celebrating Mandela, because Mandela remains a reference point for us in leadership. That when things get tough, you wonder how it was for him, how he managed to go through, how he managed to unite the country. What he achieved for us wasn't perfect, but it's really what was important for the time. I keep thinking, was there any other way that we could have achieved it? And of course, now that we've achieved it, we can look back and say, well, this could have been done, this could have been done. But actually, that's what he did was the best he could have done.
You speak about symbolism, and one of those symbolism was the self-actualization of black people, and you could be described as a perfect embodiment of that. How have you found your work?
Well, I've gotten a lot of support from UCT. Every day is a challenge, but I mean, being Vice Chancellor of UCT is supposed to be a challenge. I'm not expecting it to be easy. The issue is whether I feel that I can take on the challenge. And on day 17, I feel that I can take on the challenge. I'm sure there'll be many tougher days, and that's okay. There are leaders that I can look at the back and say, what did they achieve? How can I do this? All I want, what I'm driven about is to lead with integrity, to lead our people in such a way that whatever we achieve, we can say we did it with principle, with respect, and know nothing that we can be ashamed of. And so I'm encouraged to go on because we've got very competent people at UCT and we want the same thing. So it's bringing them together to achieve that which we want.
You come into the space immediately after time where there was the Fees Must Fall campaign, and government is having conversation about making sure that sections of education are fee-free. How is this presenting to you?
You know, let me first say, you know, the Fees Must Fall movement, as hard as it was for many people in higher education, I look back at it and I think it was important. It was hugely important. It forced the higher education sector to think about the things and to do things that we have always said we want to do, and actually never happened. It forced us to look at why is it that more than 20 years of democracy, we haven't yet transformed higher education. And you keep asking yourself, had we not had Fees Must Fall, would we have looked at transformation critically in that way? Would we have critiqued what we have achieved in the last more than 20 years? So painful as it was, I might not agree with some of the tactics that were done, but I agree with the fact that
we're going to cut you short there, but keep you here just to mention, and I hope our cameras are picking that footage up, that the President of the Republic of South Africa, Mr. Cyril Ramaphosa, has apparently arrived, and we will continue to pick up those shots for you and those visuals for you as they happen. But now we're going to continue with our conversation with Mamokgethi Phakeng. We're going to keep doing this because it's that kind of day. Yeah. Both Barack Obama and Nelson Mandela were very passionate about the youth and education. How are you going to use your stamp in this area to make sure that you realize some of their ideals?
I mean, I'm passionate about young people. I always talk about them as the future, and the future is now. And actually what got me into education is my passion for education and young people. And I actually look at them in such a way that I sometimes say to my colleagues that we've got to move because young people of today have changed. They are not young people of the 80s or the 90s. This is the C generation. They live online, they think differently, they are moved by different...
Talk about the fourth industrial revolution.
Yeah, but this is generation C. They are not interested in profit and what. They want society, they want change, they want to make a difference. And so we've got to move. We've got to realize that that's what moves them. To expect them to be the youth of 30 years ago actually is expecting what you're not going to have.
And on that high and exciting note, we're going to end it with you. We wish you all the best in your new responsibility. Thank you very much, President. Thank you so much. Mamokgethi Phakeng is the just inaugurated Vice Chancellor of the University of Cape Town. Peter.
Thanks very much, Desiree, for that. That was Desiree Chauke reporting there from the Nelson Mandela Lecture Hall.